The sun blazed mercilessly over the golden sands of ancient Egypt, its rays beating down on the sprawling palace of Pharaoh Amenhotep. Inside the cool stone walls, a different kind of heat was brewing. Whispers and worried glances filled the air as courtiers and servants alike speculated about the sudden disappearance of Queen Nefertari. Merit, a young palace servant with curious eyes and quick feet, couldn't help but overhear the hushed conversations as she went about her daily tasks. She had always admired the beautiful queen, with her kind smile and gentle demeanor. The idea that Nefertari had vanished without a trace seemed impossible. As Merit scrubbed the floors of the great hall, she caught snippets of a heated discussion between two of the pharaoh's advisors. "It's been 3 days," one of them hissed. "The pharaoh grows more agitated by the hour. We must find her." "And what if she doesn't want to be found?" the other replied, his voice barely above a whisper. "There are rumors." Merit's ears perked up, but before she could hear more, the men noticed her presence and quickly moved away. The young servant girl's mind raced. What rumors? What could have happened to the beloved queen? That night, as Merit made her way to the servants' quarters, a glint of gold caught her eye. Tucked behind a statue of Anubis was a small, ornate box. Curiosity got the better of her, and she quickly pocketed the item, her heart pounding. Once safely in her small room, Merit examined her find. The box was covered in intricate hieroglyphs and sealed with a tiny lock. With trembling fingers, she managed to pry it open. Inside, she found a scrap of papyrus with hurriedly scrawled words. "The prophecy must be fulfilled. The old gods will rise again. Forgive me, my love." Merit's breath caught in her throat. The handwriting was unmistakably that of Queen Nefertari. But what did it mean? What prophecy? And why would the queen need forgiveness? Over the next few days, Merit's mind whirled with questions as she went about her duties. She couldn't shake the feeling that she had stumbled upon something far bigger and more dangerous than she could have imagined. The palace was in turmoil. Pharaoh Amenhotep had become a shadow of his former self, spending hours staring out over the Nile, his eyes searching the horizon for any sign of his missing wife. The once jovial court had grown somber and tense. Merit knew she should tell someone about the box and the note, but fear held her back. What if she was accused of stealing? Or worse, what if she was somehow implicated in the queen's disappearance? As she debated her next move, fate intervened. While cleaning the queen's chambers, which had been left untouched since her disappearance, Merit overheard 2 of Nefertari's handmaidens speaking in hushed tones. "I saw her, the night she vanished," one of them whispered. "She was dressed in common clothes, sneaking out through the garden." "But why?" the other asked, her voice trembling. "I don't know, but she looked determined and scared." Merit's heart raced. This was it, proof that the queen had left of her own accord. But why? The note in the box flashed through her mind. The prophecy. The old gods. What did it all mean? Unable to contain her curiosity any longer, Merit decided to confide in someone. She chose Ka, an elderly scribe who had always been kind to her. When she showed him the box and relayed what she had overheard, the old man's face grew pale. "Child," he said, his voice grave, "you have stumbled upon a secret that could shake the very foundations of Egypt. Come with me." Ka led Merit through winding corridors to a part of the palace she had never seen before. They entered a small, musty room filled with ancient scrolls and artifacts. The old scribe pulled out a tattered papyrus and unrolled it carefully. "This," he said, "is the prophecy Queen Nefertari spoke of. It tells of a time when the old gods will reclaim their power, overthrowing the current pantheon and plunging Egypt into chaos. But it can only be fulfilled by one of royal blood who is willing to sacrifice everything." Merit's eyes widened as understanding dawned. The queen. She's trying to fulfill this prophecy? Ka nodded solemnly. It appears so. But why she would want to overthrow the current order, I cannot fathom. Nefertari has always been a devoted wife and queen. As they pondered this mystery, a commotion outside caught their attention. Guards were running towards the pharaoh's chambers, shouting about an intruder. Without thinking, Merit dashed after them, her heart pounding. She arrived just in time to see a cloaked figure cornered by the guards. As the intruder's hood fell back, a collective gasp filled the room. It was Queen Nefertari. The pharaoh pushed through the crowd, his face a mixture of relief and confusion. "My love," he cried, "where have you been? Why did you leave?" Nefertari's eyes were wild, darting around the room as if searching for an escape. "I had to," she said, her voice breaking. "For Egypt. For our future." Merit watched from the shadows as the queen was escorted away, the pharaoh following close behind. She knew that the truth was far more complicated than a simple disappearance and reappearance. Over the next few days, the palace buzzed with speculation. The official story was that the queen had fallen ill and secluded herself to recover, but Merit knew better. She could see the strain in Nefertari's eyes, the way the queen's hands shook when she thought no one was looking. Unable to let the mystery rest, Merit continued her clandestine investigation. She scoured the palace for more clues, eavesdropped on conversations, and spent every free moment poring over ancient texts with Ka. Their breakthrough came when they discovered a hidden chamber beneath the temple of Ammonius-Ra. Inside, they found evidence of a secret cult dedicated to the old gods, gods that had been largely forgotten or absorbed into the current pantheon. Among the cult's possessions was a stone tablet that detailed the full prophecy. It spoke of a time of great upheaval, when the balance between order and chaos would shift. The old gods would rise, bringing with them great power but also terrible destruction. Only by embracing this change could Egypt hope to survive and flourish in the new age. As Merit and Ka pieced together the puzzle, they realized the gravity of the situation. Queen Nefertari, driven by a belief in this prophecy, had planned to overthrow her own husband and usher in a new era of divine rule. But something had gone wrong. Whether it was a change of heart or an unforeseen obstacle, the queen had abandoned her plan at the last moment and returned to the palace. Armed with this knowledge, Merit knew she had to act. The cult was still out there, potentially planning another attempt to fulfill the prophecy. And the queen, torn between her loyalty to Egypt and her belief in the old gods, was a ticking time bomb. With Ka's guidance, Merit managed to secure a private audience with Pharaoh Amenhotep. Trembling but determined, she revealed everything she had discovered. The pharaoh listened in stunned silence, his face growing darker with each revelation. When Merit finished, he stood and paced the room, his brow furrowed in thought. "You have done Egypt a great service," he said finally. "But this information could tear our kingdom apart if not handled carefully." Over the next few weeks, Merit found herself at the center of a delicate and dangerous operation. Working closely with the pharaoh and his most trusted advisors, she helped to root out the cult members who had infiltrated the court. Queen Nefertari, confronted with the evidence of her betrayal, broke down and confessed everything. She had been approached by the cult years ago, slowly indoctrinated into their beliefs. They had convinced her that only by embracing the old ways could Egypt survive the coming changes in the world. The pharaoh, in his wisdom and love for his wife, chose mercy over punishment. Nefertari was sequestered in a remote temple, where she would spend the rest of her days in quiet contemplation, guarded to ensure she could not be used by the cult again. As for the cult itself, it was dismantled piece by piece. Some members were arrested, others fled into the desert. Their artifacts and texts were gathered and locked away, the knowledge deemed too dangerous to be allowed to spread. Through it all, Merit watched and learned. She saw the complexities of power, the weight of responsibility that came with ruling a kingdom. She understood now why the pharaoh was considered a living god, for he had to balance the needs of his people with the demands of the divine. As the crisis passed and life in the palace slowly returned to normal, Merit found that her own life had changed irrevocably. Her quick thinking and bravery had caught the pharaoh's attention, and she was offered a position as a junior scribe, working alongside Ka to record the true history of these events for future generations. Years later, as Merit sat in the great library of Alexandria, penning the final words of her account, she reflected on the tumultuous events that had shaped her life. The disappearance of Queen Nefertari had been just the beginning of a journey that had transformed a simple palace servant into a trusted advisor and historian. She thought of the lost queen, still living out her days in solitude, and of Pharaoh Amenhotep, who had led Egypt through one of its darkest times with wisdom and compassion. She thought of the old gods and the new, and the eternal struggle between tradition and progress. As she rolled up the completed scroll, Merit smiled to herself. The story of the lost queen would be remembered, not as a tale of betrayal and chaos, but as a testament to the strength and resilience of Egypt and its people. And perhaps, in some distant future, others would read her words and understand the delicate balance between the mortal and divine that had preserved their great civilization through the ages.